Okay, lesson 8.1 is about ratios and proportions, and our objective is to write ratios and solve proportions. So first let's look at some vocabulary. Properties of proportions. So A over B equals C over D. So basically what it's saying is if you know two fractions are equal, then all these other four things are true. So first, we know that A times D equals C times B, so you can cross multiply. We also know that B over A equals D over C. We know A over C is equal to B over D. And then we know that A plus B divided by B is the same as C plus D divided by C. Okay, then a proportion is a statement that two ratios are equal. So if A over B is equal to C over D, those fractions are equal, those ratios are equal. An extended proportion is when three or more ratios are equal. So if you have three fractions that you know are equal, that would be an extended proportion. And it gives you an example there. Then the cross product property is going to be very useful this lesson. The cross product property says the product of the extremes is equal to the product of the means. And that sounds complicated, but it's really simple when you start using it. So B and C would be the means, and A and D would be the extremes. So what this is saying is you can cross multiply, and A times D will be equal to B times C. We're also going to talk about scale drawings. A scale drawing is a drawing created using a scale factor to enlarge or shrink an actual object. And a scale is a ratio of the size of the drawing to the actual object. Okay, let's jump into some examples here. Number 1, finding ratios. A scale model of a car is 4 inches long. The actual car is 15 feet long. What is the ratio of the length of the model to the length of the car? Write both measurements in the same unit. So first we've got to convert 15 feet to inches. So 15 times 12 is 180. So then the length of the model is 4 over the length of the car. So we had 4 over 15 in feet, but we wanted that in inches, so 4 over 180. And if we reduce that, that would be 1 over 45. So the ratio of the length of the model to the actual car is 1 to 45. Let's take a look at another example here. Number 2, properties of proportions. So this is just going to show you some of the things you can do with proportions. So using the cross product property, we are going to cross multiply A times B and 4 times 12. 4 times 12 is 48. Then if we divide both sides by 12a, which is what we would get if you multiply straight across that top of the fractions, b over 12 is equal to 4 over a. So now we've flipped those two fractions over. Okay, solving for a variable. You can use cross products to solve for variables, and it's a fairly straightforward process. So using the cross product property, 5 times n is equal to 35 times 2. If we simplify that, 35 times 2 is 70. And then we have to divide both sides by 5 to find out that n equals 14. Okay. Here's a slightly more complicated problem. Again, using the cross product property, 3 times x is equal to 2 times x plus 1. Then, if we apply the distributive property, we see that 3x is equal to 2x plus 2. And then if we subtract 2x from each side, x equals 2. Okay, there are two problems for you to try here. Number 1 says a photo is 8 inches wide and 5 1/3 inches high. It is enlarged to a poster of 2 feet wide and 1 1/3 feet high. What is the ratio of the height of the photo to the height of the poster? So that'll be kind of like number 1 in the examples. Number 2, write the expression that is equivalent to m over 4 equals n over 11. So that'll be kind of like number 2 in our examples. Okay. Now let's look at number 4. This says, using proportions, 2 cities are 3.5 inches apart on a map with a scale of 1 inch equals 50 miles. Find the actual distance. So we need map distance over actual distance, so that would be 1 over 50, because 1 inch over 50 miles. So then we know that on the map it's 3.5 inches, but we don't know what distance that is. But it has to be equal to 1 over 50 because that's the scale. So if we use the cross product property, 3.5 times 50 equals d times 1, which is just d. So if we take 3.5 times 50, we get 175. So the two cities are 175 miles apart. Okay, some more check for understanding problems here. 3 is solving proportions, so this is going to be just like example 3 from earlier. We used a cross product property to solve those. And number 4 is going to be very similar to example 4. So go ahead, try those out. If you have any questions, let me know. And you should have everything you need to go ahead and get started.